Assalamualaikum and hi, welcome to my presentations on the analysis of heat stress assessment report. So this heat stress assessment report is from the SSS company where they are doing heat stress assessment report for two of their work units. Okay, so what are we going to do is that we are going to analyze the reports which will be based highlight a few aspects. So this is a few aspects that we are going to highlight. First, adequacy of the report elements, and then the technical sufficiency and comprehensiveness of the methodology, extent of discussions on the result finding, and practicality in the considerations of recommendations. Alright, so moving to the first aspect, which is adequacy of report element. So here we can see all of the this report consists of these um, seven elements, which is executive summary, introductions, objective, methodology, finding, conclusions, and recommendation. Okay, by looking at these elements, we can say that this report is the elements in this report is adequate. But how about if we go through one by one?
For executive summary, assessor has give brief descriptions on what is the heat stress. It's about the definition of the heat stress in the introductions part and how heat stress can happen and the consequences of the heat stress. And then they do as mentions about how many workers involved and uh, from what chemical from what work unit. And then in the objective also they do like a list all of the objective for this assessment. And then in the methodology of the executive summary, we can see here they have this list all of the parameters involved in this heat stress assessment. They have a walkthrough inspection, questionnaire, environmental heat stress, personal heat stress, and also physiological measurement. So all of these parameter, they have states the equipments that had been used for the assessment. Okay, and then they also describe briefly about the result. So here we can see each of the parameter here. They give the results and findings and also some comments. Okay, so here we can see like all of the elements that should have in executive summary, actually they already have. It's just that maybe um, there is lacking in the recommendation part, which is if we want to know what is the recommendations, we cannot just simply read the executive summary. We have to like go through the whole reports until we reach the recommendation. So basically in in the executive summary parts, we can get the idea of the how the idea of the heat stress assessment, but in terms of what is the recommendation based on the results that had been talked about. Okay, we have to go to other sections of these reports. As for the introductions, okay, in the report, the assessor had give again this definitions of the heat stress, which is they explains a little bit more on what is heat stress is about, and then the effect of the heat stress. And then at the ends of this, we can see like they list the legal requirements. So of course, in Malaysia for the for safety and health, we are using uh, Occupational Safety and Health Act 1994, OSHA 1994, and also Factory and Machinery 767. And here they mentions what is the clause that relate with the this assessment. And then at the end of this introductions part, they have like mentions on ACGIH 1992. So this is basically because they are using adopt the SCGIH 1992 in their methodology and most of the calculation later on. Meanwhile, for the objective part here, assessor do listed all the objective. The objective is same like what mentions in the executive summary. And then for the methodology, um, first of all, the states the dates of the assessments and then the location of the assessment. Even for the location of the assessment, the reports consist the reports have like layouts of the work unit. Here we can see for where is EH1 and where is the LB4. So in the block D here we can see the EH1 is here, and in block F we can see LB4 is here. However, through this mapping we cannot give we cannot have we they don't like give us the idea what is the heat sources around these EH1 and also LB4. So basically, from the executive summary just now until the methodology part, there is no informations on why this heat stress assessment being conducted, for what reason, what is the justifications of it. Okay, but maybe that in the later parts they do describe on that. Okay, and then so for the instrumentation and tools, against the five instruments that being talked about in the executive summary. So basically, the explanations are in this instrumentation and tools sections, where for walkthrough inspections they like give us um, the give us idea what is the walkthrough inspection is, what they want to determine, where here we can see the walkthrough inspection is to determine the building characteristic, the what is the engineering control they already have, and verify informations, and also perform temperature measurements, okay, and identify the potential heat source. So here also in the walkthrough inspections, the assessor do tell us how they done, which is based on the unstructured interview and open discussions, where from these methods, okay, they can like having knowledge on what is the potentials that cause heat stress. Okay, with these heat stress, they can get direct feedback from the personnel or person in charge. Okay, and then here they mention the heat sources, what is it, such as furnace, machines and related heat load, and what is the checklist adapt from, which is they adapt from the SCGIH 1992. And then for the questionnaire part, we can see a few questions being asked, such as social demographic, occupational informations, employment, heat complaint, lifestyle information, quality of environment in working area. So I believe this 5 session is actually to collect information so that later on we can relate with the results of this assessment. Okay, and then for the heat stress measurements, the heat stress measurement will involve the environmentals and also personal heat stress. In this methodology for heat stress measurements, they are using they are adapted from again SCGIH 1992, where there is a WBGT index TL that's being established WBGT index according to established SCGIH TLV. Okay, so here in the permissible in table 1, they like give us the table that they will use in the determines the WBGT index, where for table 1 is the permissible heat exposure TLV, which later on will be used based on what is the work or rest regimens of the employee exposed. Okay, and then they also use for WBGT corrections, where it is based on the clothing type to adjust the WBGT, and also metabolic load calculations. Then in the for equipment, they will use they are using a Questem 34 thermal environmental monitor, which is this Questem is actually incorporated with WBGT sensors. um all right, so in here we can see that they mentions that these instruments, these equipments are actually tested and calibrated before the assessment. But the testing and calibration, since we don't have appendix here, so we cannot see when is the instruments being tested, or is the calibrate is okay or not. Okay, and also raw data is not here, so we cannot see the details of them. Okay, and then the measurements was conducted for 2 hours in each unit, so they mentions the durations of the measurements. And then the placement is so this is the WBGT they are using, and then so the placement is here for EH1 and here for LB4. All right, so we can see at the EH from this placement, we can see that actually they are using rapid assessments, where it is 1.1 meter from the floor. Okay, yeah, from the floor. Okay, and then for the personal heat exposure, they are using a data loggers, where these data loggers, they will measure the air temperature and humidity for 8 hours. So individually they would measure. Okay, again, these data loggers series are calibrated within specifications outlined in their respective datasheet. So I believe it's actually have like raw data, which is we can see what is the spec in here. Okay, and then for the physiological measurement, so this physiological is because to know the blood pressure, body core temperature, and heart rate. They are using Omron body core temperature and Omron blood pressure. Okay, so that's all for the methodology part. Meanwhile, for the findings, they are uh, based on the parameters that been mentioned in the methodology part just now. So the result starts with the walkthrough inspection result. So in this walkthrough inspection result, they mentions what is the source of the heat, the exposure periods here, and then so what is the existing measure, control measure already being in place, and then how about the training is say for example here, supervisors still not be trained to detect and evaluate heat stress symptoms. And then there is like transportations, the facility of emergency, and then how the about the equipment, the personal protective equipment, and the engineering control that are available in the uh, company. Okay, then next their result are talking about the result that they obtain from the um, questionnaire, which is for social demography data, about the respondent age, the citizenships, and also BMI, and then working information data, whether about the informations on the acclimatizations, and also the shift cycle, work rest regimens in the working in this information data. So this is how they tabulate the social demographic results. And for the quality of working environment, they are tabulated into a figure. They are present them in figure form, chart form. So here we can see the quality of working environment are based on the air quality, cleanliness, hotness, satisfactions on working environment, and also talking about the prevalence of heat related illness. So From here, from this figure, we can see most of them, all of them are talking about fatigue and sweating, and the majority are body warmness and thirsty. And for EH1, this is for the whole world unit, and this is for the EH1 only. And then also have for LB4. Okay. And then for the next result is in the environmental heat stress. So for the environmental heat stress, the data being presented in this table 5. So here we can see from the table 5, the result is WBGT indoor is 30, for EH1 is 30.53 degrees Celsius, LB4 31.13 degrees Celsius, where it is acid the WBGT, acid the TLV ACGIH, which is 20 degrees Celsius. So here, based on the world category and WBGT indoor, the result is heat stress. Okay, and then for next is the personal heat stress exposure. So same with the WBGT. Just now the result for the environmental heat exposure. For environmental heat exposure, they are using the LVACGIH 28 degrees Celsius. Same goes with the personal heat exposure. So here we can see it's all above 28 degrees Celsius and even up to 38.99. So the result is all in red column, which is heat stress. And next is the physiological measurement. So for this physiological measurement, the results being tabulated are body core temperature, systolic blood, the diastolic blood, and also the heart rate. Um, yeah, so basically this is the uh, finding that being tabulated in the elements of findings.
So for the recommendation parts, for both EH1 and LB4 area, the recommendations are divided into the short terms, mid-term, and long-term. Okay, so for those workers that experience a heat-related illness, okay, the recommendation for short-term is that to workers to have the increased airflow, which is have by having fans, and then having for worker to have the adequate amount of water, and there is some encouragement to worker to have drink a lot of fluid. Okay, and then in the midterms, recommend to, in the midterms exposure less than 6 months, it is recommend to to have a work rest schedule, and also encourage from during the rest time for workers to remove their protective equipments, and then to provide training. In the long run, maybe in the long run, the assessor do recommend for the worker, uh, for the management to like having provide the ventilation systems and shielding to reduce the temperature, and then provide air conditioner for to cool the area for those area that exposed with hot work. Alright, so basically, there is some comment on it where actually I have already comments from the E session just now. Okay, just like to emphasize on the few aspect more, which is the descriptions of work area. So, what is the meaning of descriptions of work area? From what I've shown just now, I can say like they don't have they don't describe what is the work uh, being conducted, being performed by the workers at the area, and then there is no like justification why the heat assessment was conducted for this work area. And then there is no like a screening checklist that we can go through uh, where we can go through. And then for the discussion session is actually already in the uh, finding and result session. Just that in the finding and results, it's not a very detailed discussion. It's just more into what is the results, and then there is no like a relations of it. So these discussions later on will be discussed in the next slide. Okay. Then we move to the methodology part, the sufficiency of the technical part. Okay, for the methodology parts, they are describing based on the parameter. So first is the walkthrough inspection, where the walkthrough inspections they have like a checklist, which is adapt from the SCGIH 1962, and they are doing the unstructured interview and open discussion. So in that reports, they mentions that these water inspections are conducted to obtain a few information, including building and operation characteristic, temperature measurement, what is the potential heat source, and then what is the current control measure. And then for the next parameter is questionnaire. So for questionnaire, there is a booklet given to the employee of these two units. So these employee have to answer five sections, which is respondent social demographic, occupational informations, employment health complaint, lifestyle informations, and also quality of environmental conditions of the work area. Next is the for the heat stress measurement. So for the heat stress measurement, just mentioned before, uh, the heat stress measurement is for uh, two element, which is heat stress for environmental and heat stress for personal. So for environmental, they are using uh, Questem Questem 34 thermal environmental monitor, which equipped with the WBGT sensors. So this WBGT was mentioned, tested, and calibrated before assessment, but in the reports there is like no details, clear details on when it's been tested, what are being tested, when it's calibrated, and what they calibrate, how they calibrate, and then but they do mention the durations of the measurements. So for the measurements, they conducted for 2 hours. Here is the how they place the Questem 34 thermal environmental monitor. So here we can see for EH1, they are placed it in here. So this is the work area, and this is the work area. I believe it's the source of the heat, and then this is the WBGT, and this is the workers that being exposed. And then for personal heat stress exposure, they are using data loggers. So these data loggers actually measure the air temperature and also humidity for 8 hours of each individual. So again, these data loggers also being mentioned calibrated, but there is uh, no data on it. There is no set or any detail of it, so we cannot like having go through the calibrations elements. Okay, and then the physical measurements, they are using to get the blood pressure and also body core temperature and heart rate. So these blood pressure and also temperature and heart rates are measured before working hour and after working hour. Alright, so the comment is that they have like detailed explanations on the equipment they use, but in terms of the calibrations, they are unable to state it in the reports. Maybe it is other parts of the report, such as appendix and etc. But what we can say, they don't have. So we just rely on the statements that being included in the reports. Okay, so and then the time conducting assessment, so totals 1 hour corresponding to the maximum heat stress. So this is what's being mentioned in the guidelines of heat stress 2016. So but in the methodology part, they do describe that their WBGT are being measured for 2 hours, but there is no justification why it is 2 hours, because there is no information on the working hour, the break time. So we cannot we are unable to know what is the justifications they are doing for 2 hours, and what is actually the times of these 2 hours, why these 2 hours are chosen. Is it because of during that time is the most exposed? Okay, and then third is the justification for positions of equipment. So because of there is only a picture of it, of the uh, place placements of the equipment, so we cannot know whether it is actually really represent the source or not. And then there is no like information how WBGT being arranged. Okay, is it 1 per meters or not? uh, because there is no mentions about that. And then a place as near as possible to the source of heat, so also not being described. And then maybe it is best if in the layout that they already have in the methodology part, maybe in the methodology, in that layout, they can like having for the EH1 machine and LB4, maybe they can have like what is the potential source of it, or the layouts of the machinery also. Okay, so that we can know is it represent the source or not. Maybe we can get some idea of it. Okay, and then we are going to the extent of discussions on the result finding. Um, okay, again, the results and finding are based on the parameters that we mentioned in the methodology, and also in the object in the summary just now. Okay, so first is walkthrough inspection. So the walkthrough inspections, what are they obtain is that the assessor uh, I had identified the source of heat, which is machine producing heat and furnace. They have the information of the exposure period, which is continuous, and then what is the available facility. So from the result I'm finding, there is a potable water, transportation to medical facility. They have like a PPE, a ventilation fan and blower fan. Okay, how about reported illness and training? So at the moment there is no reported illness, and also no training being conducted yet. Okay, and then for the from the questionnaire, this is the data that they obtain. Age of the mean age of the employee, the nationality, the education, the mean height and weight of the employee, the body mass index, whether they are employee, the lifestyle of the employee, and the physical activity of the employee. Okay, and then they obtain the working information data. So okay, and then whether worker are being acclimatized or not, and the shift cycles, and then what's the regiments of it. So from there, from the working information data, they know that the workers are acclimatized, they have a shift cycles, and then the regimen is 75% work and 25% rest each hour. All right, so from the questionnaire also, for the quality of working environment, we can see all of the workers are choosing, feeling the air quality, cleanliness, and hotness of temperature is a fair, fair score, and then fair score. Okay, for the prevalence of heat-related illness, so all of the employee complaints, they have experienced fatigue and also sweating, and majority having a body warmness and thirsty. and some half of them are having coughing and muscle fatigue. Okay. For the environmental heat stress, the clothing adjustment factor estimate at 7 degrees Celsius for the clothing worn by employee. And then the metabolic rate is moderate, ranging from 210 to 300 kilocalorie per hour. So this is the result of it. So the WBGT indoor is 30.53 degrees Celsius, and for LB4 31.13 degrees Celsius, so which is above 28 degrees Celsius, as their workload category is moderate, which with the workload the regimen is the 75 work and 25% rest. So the result is both worker at this area, both area, uh, the workers are having heat stress. Yeah, and then for the personal heat stress exposure, for each of the workers involved, A, B, C, D, the WBGT based on the temperature and relative humidity is the most highest is the Mr. C at LB4, but overall all of them are experiencing heat stress. And for physiological measurements, which is obtaining the information on blood pressure and also body core temperature, um, this is the result of it. All right. Um, the results are being figure and also tabulate accordingly. It's just that there is no data, raw data provided, so we cannot like having very analyze the data itself. And then for the heat stress, we cannot. They don't have like we don't have range how extends how is the severe the heat stress is. Okay, because there is no like for in the compared to the guidelines of the heat stress management 2016. Okay, they have like the heat stress is it low, medium or high. So for this they only have the heat stress which is it is above PEL, permissible exposure limit, then it is heat stress. But how 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 is the severity? We cannot justify that. Okay, so the risk decision is a bit unclear on that. So yeah. And then for the result they obtain from each objective are not discussed clearly. What I mean from this is that it is good that they in the reports each of the elements being discuss the result, but the relation of this result is not being discussed. Okay, because for example they have existing control measure, so those existing control measure are not related with the heat stress that they obtain from the personal and environmental heat measurement. Okay, and then next is the relation between each parameter. Okay, that's already been discussed. Okay, move to the practicality in the consideration of recommendation. So here is the recommendation part, where I believe the recommendation is based on the result, but it's a little bit different from what being um, guide in the guidelines of heat stress management 2016, because this is based on the short term, mid terms and long term, where the guidelines on heat stress management 2016 are based on um, the risk level, which is low, medium and high. Okay, so this for short terms, the assessor recommends to have fence for increase the airflow and provides adequate amount of water. And then for the midterms, can plan to have a work rest schedules and also encourage worker to make a post so encourage worker to remove their PPE when they are in break time, and also provide a training for give awareness to workers that they are what kinds of heat stress they are exposing to. And then for the long terms, installations of the engineering control and also air conditioning. Okay, so here is what being recommend based on the result. Okay, but it's different with the guidelines on heat stress management. So this is the one that I mentioned before. So the with low risk, what we can do is medium risk, what we can do, and high risk, what we can do. But in terms of recommendations, it's really subjective. It depends on the justifications of the assessor. Maybe it is practicable, the most practicable for them. So that's why they are recommend what they have recommend in the reports. Okay. So basically, that's the four aspect being talked about, and then a few comments and what can be improved from the reports provided. So that's all from me. So thanks for listening.